Ladies and gentlemen, it is your man out of Japan, Jay Contra, and I'm feeling very out of Japan now that it's been, almost 2 years since Japan's been closed to tourism. But it's that time of year. We're transitioning into 2022, and it's in the new year that I like to kind of reflect on what happened in the past year and sort of guess or prophesy what we're going to see transpire over the next 12 months. And as I mentioned, it's been a very long time since regular folks have been able to go into Japan. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be a long time before we're even able to go back. If you had asked me when the pandemic started, I would have said that, we'll probably be back in Japan by the end of the year. Probably at the very least, could have been planning our, New Year 2022 plans. Could plan to go to Japan. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And with all of these new variants ranging from Delta to Omicron to whatever, considering how quickly Japan will shut its doors at the whiff of a new coronavirus case, it seems kind of clear to me now that it's going to be a very, very long time before we get back into the country. I'd say I'm thinking summer 2023 at the earliest. You can maybe cross your fingers summer 2022, but I don't think that's going to happen, especially if Japan has closed its doors to people who want to live or work or study in the country. I don't think they're going to be letting in tourists for quite some time. So what does that mean for us Japanese video game collectors? Well, first, we kind of need to put things into perspective, because when you look at the American retro gaming market over the last 2 years, it's been insane. The price jumps on things that don't make a whole lot of sense. For example, you've seen NES, Super Nintendo, N64 games double or in sometimes even triple in price over the last couple of years. And it's been very strange that it's been like at the beginning of the year. If you look at price charting, you saw a steep jump in these old systems at the beginning of the year of 2020, and then another one in 2021. Will we see a third step in the graph in 2022? I'm not sure in the American case. But it is pretty shocking, because those price jumps have also been affecting old systems that you thought would have been at the height of their popularity. For example, the Nintendo. You would have thought that the Nintendo Entertainment System would have been at its highest price point in, say, 2016, 2017, when sort of the retro gaming market was at its peak. But apparently it was able to go up even more for these older systems that you thought would have kind of, especially like by 2020, 2021, people would have kind of thought the NES was old or even older news and would have been moving on to other systems. Well, we've seen renewed interest in the NES and the Super Nintendo, and then even more interest on things like the GameCube and the PS2, and starting to see some for the Xbox 360. But when you flip that over to the Japanese side, it's much more mixed. It's much weirder. You're not seeing giant price spikes like you are in the United States. You are seeing appreciation in certain consoles. I was just looking at some old footage that I took of Dreamcast games in Japan, and I was actually kind of surprised that I should have bought a lot of games in 2022, because looking at their prices online, there's a lot of Dreamcast games that are more expensive now. There's a lot of Sega Saturn games that are more expensive now. But what I think is happening, I think it's just natural progression. I don't think it's Corona-induced price increases. I think it's just that you had these underappreciated systems, like, say, the PC Engine, that have a dedicated fan base that just keep slowly accumulating all of the games and taking them off of the market instead of reintroducing them. Because when you look at, say, Famicom, Super Famicom, N64, prices are actually going down on certain games. Like, I can tell you, like, for the Super Nintendo, Undercover Cops, Wild Guns, those cartridges are half of what they used to be 2 or even 3 years ago. Complete in-box Japanese games I see as going up and will be steadily going up over the years, simply because those are the games that collectors will buy, they'll have their diamond hands on them, and they will not let go. But for cartridges where, say, a console comes into vogue, like, say, the Super Famicom in 2016, 2017. Those prices really jumped up, both on complete in box and cartridge. But what you're seeing now is as people see, oh, Super Famicom, I played the games, I had my fun, now it's time to move on. They sell their games. They reintroduce the cartridges back into the market, thus lowering the price. So if you're collecting Super Famicom and you don't care about having boxes, the world is your oyster. I think things are only going to get cheaper. But if you want those complete in-box games, like, say, Magical Poppin'. Magical Poppin' used to be like a $1,500 game. Now it's a $2,000 game. So, unfortunately, if you are one of those prestige collectors, especially for the rare games complete in box are going to be very expensive. But, hey, there's still tons of common games on the Super Famicom, and especially for the N64, that are going to be always cheap, even if they go up, 10%. 10% of cheap is still cheap. But how are you going to get these games? That's, I think, the really interesting mix of things that I've seen happen in the Japanese video game market. I was, I think, as shocked as anybody when I saw that Super Potato opened an eBay shop. This is really surprising to me because I did not expect it, although I think it should have happened years ago. There should have been methods for Japanese retailers of retro games to sell their items abroad. You saw it in limited cases. You've had Mandarake selling games for a while, Surugaya, of course, and then you also had Yamotoku selling games online, but they shut down their store for the longest time. And I have the feeling that this is related to the shipping issues that have been affecting everything, especially like, newly manufactured products. I did not expect these shipping issues to be affecting Japanese retro games, but I think that's why Yamotoku shut down, because they were relying on cheap Japan Post shipping. But Japan Post has also been really weird because, for a while they were open to shipping things abroad, but now they're not, and that has affected prices on eBay. What you got to know about buying Japanese retro games on eBay is that eBay prices are very distorted because it's an international marketplace versus what you're going to be buying in Japan. So if you're buying a video game in Japan, that's probably the cheapest that you're ever going to find it, with certain exceptions. But when you go onto eBay, you're going to see prices have gone up on Japanese eBay games. For one, because I think of increased demand, because people have to buy them through eBay instead of going to Japan to buy it themselves. But I think the bigger reason is because of shipping. This has also affected Surugaya's online site, where normally you could ship it through Japan Post at a reasonable price. But now if you want to ship something abroad from Japan, you've got to ship it through, say, like FedEx or DHL. And so you're talking about doubling or tripling shipping prices. That is really going to affect you if you want to buy common games, because you really want to pay like $60 on a copy of Yoshi's Island when it's like $10 in Japan. Maybe patience will save you a lot of money for when we're eventually able to go back in, but who's to know? Looking over the next year in terms of Japanese retro video games, I don't think we're going to see any massive changes in terms of the market. I think you're going to see the popular systems are going to come in and out of vogue. Right now, PlayStation is hot. Well, PlayStation 2 is hot. I'd say Xbox 360, I think, has unexpectedly really taken off, probably because it wasn't popular back in the day, but it's become more popular now. If you really want to collect Japanese games, I would say now is the time to buy GameCube games, because Japanese GameCube prices have not really gone up. I mean, the most expensive Japanese GameCube game is like Castleween for like $150. Like, that's nothing when you compare it to like Cubivore in the United States, or basically any other American GameCube game is going to be more expensive than, say, like, even the rarest and most expensive Japanese GameCube game. There are still so many Japanese games out there that are going to be much more affordable than their American counterparts, which is why I'm going to say that I think 2022 is still an amazing time to be buying Japanese retro games. And now with new ways of playing these games, with Analog releasing their new systems, with FPGA systems coming out, with RetroTink coming out with these new upscalers, I think now is an amazing time. And I would, I hesitate to say it. I'm going to try and justify it. But I think today, I think despite the insane prices on games, both American and Japanese, I think it is still the greatest time to be a retro video game collector. It's even better to be a retro video game player because of all the options that you have. But the fact is that there are now more games available because of these increased price points. We see more supply of video games, both American and foreign, available today than we have ever seen. And I think that's the bright side of things. We now are able to buy Japanese video games in the United States much, much more easily than we were able to 5 years ago. So yes, the world is collapsing. Everything is terrible, but at least we can buy some Japanese video games. I've been your man out of Japan, Jay Contra. Thanks for watching, and mahalo.